The Robbit by J.R.R. pause for breath, Ewing. Produced and narrated by nobody important. Near a hole in the ground there lived a Robbit. This wasn't a dirty great wet hole filled with carelessly discarded non-biodegradable waste and an intricately complex Victorian plumbing system. Oh no, this was a loophole, and what that meant, the Robbit didn't have the slightest idea. Besides, he barely noticed it, as he was much more concerned with his beautiful home, his channel, as he liked to call it. The channel, as lots of his fellow Robbits liked to call it, and they would tell him often. His channel had lots of rooms filled with wonderful things like stories, games and videos of kittens, and very accessible big shiny buttons, which said things like subscribe or like, and the like. Robbit was very fond of his channel, and he loved the buttons and loved to fill his rooms with stories. Adventurous, humorous and remarkable tales, which he dearly loved to share. Often our Robbit would be seen every Friday tea time, British summertime, recounting these wonderful tales to everyone in the village and beyond. Some could say that it was rather like a community gathering of like-minded Robbits who also just liked to share stories or to hear them. But, of course, all good things eventually come to an end, as it did when our Robbit, who had incidentally just turned 50, found himself returning home one evening only to find the front door to his channel locked with heavy chains. Also, his beautiful door, which he had only just painted the week before, was scribbled with strange runes that he did not understand.
Dumbfixicated! What is going on? Who has locked me out of my beautiful channel?
The Robbit was so distracted by this sudden turn of events, which he could just not understand at all, that he failed to notice his friend and amateur herbalist, Garrydorf, arrive behind him. Garrydorf stood and stared at him with a knowing smile beneath his big bushy eyebrow. He only had the one due to an unfortunate accident involving herb experimentation. But the poor Robbit didn't notice him until he cleared his throat loudly and said with his large raspy voice, which one could imagine was perhaps due to his obsession with the aforementioned herbs.
"It's no good, my friend," said Garrydorf. "There's nothing you can do about it. Well, at least not for 90 days or so. Oh, and that depends if nothing else gets locked. YouTube has locked you out."
What on earth are you talking about? Someone has locked my beautiful door.
Yes, indeed, quite evidently locked.
But what? I was going to tell a story tonight, with mountains and dragons and...
That's just the problem, my friend. You've been telling other people's stories, and you're being shut down. The runes say it all.
What? But I don't read runes.
Not many do. Well, especially unless you happen to have a law degree, which I don't, but I follow a lot of forums. Well, it says, due to copyright violations, your front door has been stricken. That's a strike in friendly layman terms. Have a nice day, your bestest friend and landlord, YouTube.
What? Other people's stories? I don't understand.
The poor little Robbit began to look rather distressed at this point, and Garrydorf's face melted from a mockingly know-it-all expression to genuine concern for his friend. Although in truth he had only ever been interested in gaining unlimited access to the herbs from the Robbit's garden.
Look, I love your stories. We all love the stories and the way you tell them, you excitable little fellow. But the truth is that the stories you sometimes tell were once written down nearly 100 years ago by someone else. Because they've been written down, you don't have the rights to say them out loud, especially where others can hear them said.
Written down? I don't understand. Stories are a verbal tradition, passed down from generations to generations, like a ritual of experience, a passing of knowledge and wisdom. I simply don't see how me reading aloud a story would make someone lock me out of my beautiful channel.
Because, my friend, someone wrote it down first, and it's therefore copyrighted.
Copyright? For reading aloud?
You really don't know, do you? Let me see. Oh, I know. Let's say I take this piece of paper here, right, and write down the words, bananas aren't orange.
But bananas aren't orange.
Ah, there it is right there, see? Because I've written it down, it is now copyrighted, as this little piece of paper is now a tangible entity. And by you repeating this exact phrase, without my consent, you have violated my copyright, and...
The windows to my channel's unlocked now.
That may have been my fault for making you inadvertently breach copyright rules. Sorry. You should not have read other people's writings aloud, you see. That's the issue here. There is clearly someone who doesn't like it.
Doesn't like it? How is reading aloud wrong? How could anyone be annoyed at someone who reads a book aloud?
Well, for one thing, it's derivative.
What?
And for another, they may just not like the way you say it.
This is preposterous.
Look, you cannot copy a work these days. You can't write it down or even say it aloud. Much like my little bit of paper here.
So what you're saying is that me reading aloud your words on that paper is exactly the same as me writing it down on another piece of paper, like this.
Oh, I would... oh dear. Well, that's torn it. 3 strikes.
What? This is all wrong. There must be something I can do, or someone I can talk to.
YouTube, you mean?
Well, yes.
No good.
What? Wait. I know. There's a support button somewhere. Let me just...
It won't do you any good, because there is no someone.
What? What do you mean?
What I mean is there is no one you can talk to because YouTube isn't one. It's not singular. It's a collective of clocking in at set times around the globe, wearing friendly t-shirts and saying things like, yo, and hey dude, and smiling almost over-enthusiastically at computer screens and thinking up new trendy algorithmic words and watching kitten videos, of course. But never at the same time during every millisecond of the day. They are, for want of a better word, a hive of individuals fleeting in and out of monitoring consumer and creator complaints and whatnots. There is no person you can speak to because by the time one hears your question, a completely different person who didn't hear the question in the first place will answer. And it's highly likely that that person will just say, hey dude, and ask you what the problem is. Which of course you'll do, and you'll be met by the same thing over again. Another person answering, hey dude, what's the problem? YouTube is somewhat like a lidless eye watching over its kingdom, when you think about it. Would you like a smoke? It may cheer you up.
No, I just want to crawl in a hole and cry.
There's a hole over there, the big wet one mentioned at the beginning.
Fine, that will do.